Chapter 11. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dang dang dang, the two of them were swinging their swords constantly, and Sandai Kitetsu and Wado Ikemanji were slashing at each other. There was a sound of metal hitting each other. The figures of the two people were also shuttling back and forth in the sword test field. Good, good. The boss who was watching on the side was full of excitement at the two people who were trying their best. He also had a dream of being a swordsman, but unfortunately he didn't have that talent, but in his lifetime, he could see such a sword duel, and he would die without regrets. After another collision, the two of them retreated a few steps again. This time, the two did not rush at each other again. Instead, they stared at each other, trying to see each other's flaws. They were also accumulating strength to launch a stronger attack, one sword style, Flying Dragon, Flame. Roronoa Zoro exerted force with his legs, and the whole person jumped into the air, and placed Wado Ikemanji behind him, and then a dragon-shaped sword move was formed, wrapping him in the middle, and finally the man and the dragon went to Mach together. Seeing this move, Mach's pupils shrank slightly. I have to say that Zoro is Zoro, and every move is very domineering and eye-catching. He is worthy of being one of the most popular characters in One Piece, and this move is not only powerful, the power is also extraordinary. Once it hits the enemy, a high-temperature blue flame will emerge from the wound and completely burn the target. One sword-style Shura slash. Mach was on the ground, and the whole person became excited. He took a deep breath, and then his body was slightly bent. He took the Sandai Kitetsu in his backhand and stretched it behind him. The ghost energy rushed out of his body, and then condensed into a Shura holding a long sword. Just when Roronoa Zoro's dragon-shaped sword move was about to hit him, Mach decisively swung the Sandai Kitetsu in his hand. The Shura condensed by the ghost energy also swung the knife in his hand. Boom, the two's attacks collided fiercely again, forming a powerful force that swept around with the two as the center. The clothes on the two people were rustling. The boss was like being in a typhoon of level 7 or 8, and he was a little unstable. Fortunately, there was a wall behind him. But even so, he still stared at the two, afraid of missing anything. Ding, the next second, Roronoa Zoro broke Mach's Shura, and the Wado Ikemanji slashed on Mach's body. At this time, Roronoa Zoro had already retracted his strength. After all, the two were competing, not fighting to the death. But even so, if this knife hit hard, it would definitely hurt Mach. At least Roronoa Zoro and the owner of the weapon shop thought so, but unexpectedly, when the Wado Ikemanji slashed on Mach, it made a sound of metal hitting. How is it possible? The boss couldn't help but exclaimed, and then he remembered. The man in front of him is not just a swordsman, but also a devil fruit user. Roronoa Zoro was also shocked. His eyes fell on the place where Mach was cut by him. The clothes were torn, revealing Mach's fair skin, but there was no scar on it. I lost. Although Mach lost, he was not discouraged at all. He was even a little happy. How long has he been practicing? And what about Roronoa Zoro? This battle can be judged that he already has the kendo strength to compete with Roronoa Zoro. He believes that his swordsmanship will definitely surpass Roronoa Zoro when they meet next time. Mach put the third-generation Kitetsu into the scabbard, and then stood up to Roronoa Zoro and smiled. I think you will go to the Grand Line too. I look forward to meeting you again, and then we will have another match. Okay. Roronoa Zoro agreed decisively without thinking, because Mach was the only swordsman who was equally matched with him in the East China Sea. He was very happy to have such an opponent. Moreover, he did not think that Mach's swordsmanship was much worse than his. Because he could see that what Mach really lacked was the experience of fighting against the enemy. The most important thing was that they really fought. He might be the loser, because the opponent's body was as hard as iron. His strongest move just now could not hurt the opponent at all. It was incredible. Could it be that he was also a devil fruit ability user like Luffy? Mach left. After all, he had other things to do. He only wanted to clearly understand his swordsmanship level by looking for Roronoa Zoro to compete. Now, he quickly walked towards the execution platform, because no matter how the plot and characters changed because of him, one thing would never change, that is, Luffy would definitely go to the execution platform. And this was his chance, as long as he suppressed Luffy on the execution platform. So, some plots everything will return to its original position. Sure enough, when he came to the execution platform, Bartolomeo and his childhood sweetheart Dazaya were already in the square of the execution platform. Especially Bartolomeo's very distinctive appearance and dress, it was so eye-catching that he could be found at a glance. Soon his eyes fell on the execution platform. I saw a guy wearing a straw hat, constantly climbing up. Sure enough, the smile on Mok's face could no longer be suppressed. Mok touched the ground with his hand and activated his ability. Mok's body immediately began to change. Entered the natural system mud state, because against Luffy, the guy with the protagonist halo, it was still more natural. Then Mok uttered lightly, mud and stone binding. The next second, the mud under the execution platform seemed to come alive. It rushed out crazily, wrapped around the entire bottom of the execution platform, and quickly went up. It seemed to be about to swallow the entire execution platform. Scared, that at this time, Luffy had already discovered the abnormality below. He was so scared that his eyes were about to pop out. After all, at this time, Luffy was not the same as he would be 2 years later. His knowledge was very limited. The ability user he had seen was just a clown buggy who was as good as garbage, but Luffy was a very persistent person. He would not stop until he had done what he wanted to do. He accelerated and climbed to the top of the execution platform at a high speed. However, under Mok's control, the soil rose faster. Just when Luffy reached the top of the execution platform, the soil had also reached it, and directly swallowed up the platform at the top of the execution platform, along with Luffy. Luffy only left his head outside, and his eyes became flustered. Because he found that no matter how he struggled, he could not get out. The whole person seemed to be trapped in a quagmire. At the same time, the soil under Mok's feet surged like waves, lifting him to the same position as Luffy. You are a pirate, right? You should have been prepared for death. While speaking, Mok slowly pulled out the Sandai Kitetsu in his hand, and made a gesture to kill him with his sword. Who are you? Luffy panicked and struggled desperately. Even though he knew that struggling was useless. Because this was a person's desire to survive, but when Mok's sword slashed down, Luffy calmed down instead, and smiled at Luffy below. It was this smile that shocked everyone present. Mok also smiled, because this was the effect he wanted. Chapter 12. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom boom. At the same time, there was a thunder in the sky, followed by a burst of lightning, which happened to hit Mok, but everything was within Mok's expectations. Under this thunder, Mok was blown up. He turned into countless mud dots and splashed around. However, countless mud dots quickly gathered together again. Mok has recovered as before, but at this time, he is already on the ground. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, and he laughed in his heart. Long, you old man, I knew you would do this. This. In a corner of the square, Dashiki was shocked. Smoker also widened his eyes and turned to look at Dashiki. Didn't you say that he is a user with the ability similar to the Nika Fruit? Anyone with the ability similar to the Nika Fruit is a fart. Just now, he was definitely an elemental. This is clearly a natural ability user, probably a natural mud fruit ability user. At this moment, Smoker looked at Mok with a different look. A kendo genius, plus a natural ability user. If such a guy joins the Navy, he will become a great man in the future. Maybe, he will be one of the future admirals. Then, his eyes fell on Luffy again. His eyes immediately became cold. The most important thing now is this guy. Dashiki, follow up. As soon as the words fell, the whole person turned into a cloud of smoke and went towards Luffy. The speed was very fast, but at this time, Luffy had already escaped. And he had already seen the Navy people, and the most important thing was that Nami and Usopp had also come. Pull Luffy and run. Tsk tisk. Mok watched Smoker and Dashiki chasing Luffy, and watched Bartolomeo looking at Luffy with admiration. He couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart and couldn't help laughing. I never thought that you are not only a great swordsman, but also a natural type mud fruit ability user. I don't know when. The owner of the weapon shop has come to Mok's side. With a smile on his face, he looked at Mok with a bit of flattery and fawning eyes. Mok turned his head to look at the boss, with some doubts in his heart, because he didn't understand why this guy came, so he couldn't help asking, what's the matter? The boss hesitated for a moment, but immediately made up his mind. It's like this, my wife has a sister named Ada. She is a cook who likes to cook. In order to pursue better cooking skills, she went to the Grand Line. It is said that there are better ingredients there, and she wants to see it. If you go to the Grand Line and happen to pass by the Cook Island, please help me and my wife find out her whereabouts. Because, the last news of her was there. After that, the boss bowed deeply to Mach. Mach was very surprised, because in the original work, the boss didn't say this to Roronoa Zoro. It seems that because of him, this world has changed a little. It is because of this that he suddenly wants to see what this change is like. So he nodded, don't worry, I will go to Cook Island. Ada, I will also help you find out. The boss was slightly stunned when he heard this. He asked him to help him find out the whereabouts of Ada if he passed by Cook Island, because he knew very well that he didn't have such a big face to let Mach go to Cook Island to help him find Ada. After coming back to his senses, the boss showed an incredible expression, then he was overjoyed. Thank you so much, as in the original work, with the help of Dragon, the Super Dad. Luffy and his crew successfully rushed out of Rogue Town and headed for the Grand Line. Soon they went upstream and rushed to the upside-down mountain. With this, they took the first step into the Grand Line. Mach's attention at this time was on Bartolomeo. He wanted to see how his superhuman barrier fruit came from. Time passed little by little, and as Smoker had left with Luffy, Rogue Town became a chaotic place. After all, Rogue Town could become the weakest and most stable existence in the 4 seas. Smoker played a big role, and now, without Smoker's deterrence, whether it is pirates or hooligans like Bartolomeo, they are all lawless, especially Bartolomeo, who is lawless to begin with. Once Smoker left, no one could restrain him. Boss, I got the news. The one who came to our Rogue Town is Colonel Wild Dog from East China Sea Base No. 12. Who? Bartolomeo was completely depressed. The 3 major evils of the East China Sea Navy are Colonel Monka, Colonel Mouse, and Colonel Wild Dog. Only the fool Smoker didn't know, but the people below already knew it. But, let's be honest. These 3 guys are the 3 major evils of the East China Sea, but their strength, one is weaker than the other. Bartolomeo smiled. I'm about to go to sea, so I'll borrow their heads to make a name for myself. At the same time, it can be regarded as eliminating an evil for Rogue Town. After all, he was born in Rogue Town, and he didn't want Colonel Wild Dog to finally sit in the position of the highest commander of Rogue Town. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the entire Rogue Town will live in hell. Mach, who was secretly staring at Bartolomeo, raised his eyebrows. What is Rogue Town? That is the throat of the East China Sea. The Navy headquarters will never let a weak person sit in this position. Even if the character is not good, the strength must be good. Even if it is not as good as Smoker, there is a certain strength to deter the pirates of the East China Sea. Otherwise, Smoker's efforts over the years will be wasted. Bartolomeo is a little powerful, but it is only against ordinary people. If he faces him, the person who can replace Smoker will only die. At this time, Mach was muttering in his heart. Could it be that there is another saying? Or, did this guy get the barrier fruit before this? Otherwise, he didn't think that the current Bartolomeo could beat the man sent by the Navy to replace Smoker. 3 days later, a small warship sailed into the port of Rogue Town. Soon a team of Navy came out of the ship, led by a very tall Navy colonel, Tisk, and when they walked out of the port and came to the town, Bartolomeo surrounded him with a group of people. He stared at Colonel Wild Dog with contempt, and said arrogantly, Colonel Wild Dog, I know you have been greedy for a lot, give some to the brothers. Otherwise, you won't be able to pass this level today. Mach in the dark twitched. This Bartolomeo is really brave. Chapter 13. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ha ha ha. Colonel Wild Dog laughed out loud as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. Bartolomeo's expression froze, because Colonel Wild Dog's laughter really stimulated him. It even made him feel very uneasy. Shave. Colonel Wild Dog disappeared instantly, and when he appeared again, he was already standing in front of Bartolomeo. If he was close, he could hit the opponent's face with just a wave of his hand. 6 styles. Mock's pupils shrank slightly in the dark. When it comes to the Navy, the 6 styles is something that cannot be avoided. It can be said that most of the naval officers, except those who use swords, basically know a few 6 styles, some even know the 6 styles, but it must be said that all the Navy officers who master the 6 styles are not weak. Because the 6 styles are not something that everyone can practice, but it requires 500 Dao power. Don't underestimate this 500 Dao power. For example, the Dao power value used to test the combat effectiveness of the Navy is also a standard to prove the strength of a person's combat effectiveness. The Dao power value of the most ordinary Navy soldier in this world is 10, and those who exceed 500 are considered superhuman. Look at the people in CP9, some of them only have 500 or 600 Dao power. Of course, this value is not rare and top-notch, but in the first half of the Grand Line, it can be considered a little powerful, not to mention that in this weakest East China Sea, it is definitely a strong man, and a crushing strong man. Scared, Bartolomeo was so scared that his eyes were about to pop out. He instinctively retreated, but how could he be the opponent of the Navy who mastered the 6 styles now? Bang! Colonel Wild Dog kicked directly and hit Bartolomeo in the abdomen. Under the powerful force, Bartolomeo flew out directly like a kite with a broken string. Then Colonel Wild Dog did not stop. Shave, kick out, shave. Kick out, the same move, simple and direct, but none of the minions brought by Bartolomeo could take it. Impossible, this is impossible. Bartolomeo, who had fallen 7 or 8 meters away at this time, was full of horror and fear when he saw this scene. Soon, nearly 100 minions all fell to the ground. They either broke their legs or arms, or their ribs. It can be seen that Colonel Wild Dog did not show mercy. Finally, he walked towards Bartolomeo step by step. The corners of his mouth slightly raised, revealing a mocking smile. Bartolomeo jumped up from the ground in fear, and stepped back step by step while enduring the pain. At the same time, he still couldn't believe it. How is it possible? You can't even beat that guy sheeping. Sheeping? Colonel Wild Dog seemed to have thought of something when he heard it. Then he couldn't help laughing, and laughed very happily. I say, who gave you the courage to attack me? So, you know that guy sheeping. Now that I think about it, it makes sense. Sheeping was born in Rog Town, and like the people in front of me, he was a gangster. It's not surprising that someone knows him, but that guy is his white glove. The defeat to sheeping that time was just a pretense. After all, this guy did a big deal, can't stay any longer, and that time it just happened to be an encounter battle on the sea. Can't really catch that guy, right? Wouldn't that be asking for trouble? After letting him go, find an opportunity to kill him silently. Then take all the money he robbed as your own, and finally use this money to open up some relationships. The loss of that little reputation is nothing compared to these. Otherwise, how could he sit in the first position in the East China Sea? With this position, he can make more money. By then, there will be more money to make connections, and he will naturally be promoted faster. What a great thing. But he didn't expect that he would give these rubbish the illusion that he was weak. Please, although he is not as good as Smoker, he is at least a naval cadet of the same level as Smoker. His strength may not be a big deal in the Grand Line, but in the East China Sea, once Smoker is gone, who else can be his opponent? There is no one who can match him at all. Just like these mobs in front of him, they can be killed at will. I will fight you. At this time, Bartolomeo has also come back to his senses. There is madness in his eyes and a ferocious face. Because he knows that he has no way out except to fight to the death. Even if he dies, at least he must die with dignity. Bartolomeo pounced directly on Colonel Wild Dog. Unfortunately, Bartolomeo's actions were like a mob in the eyes of Colonel Wild Dog, like a turtle, very slow. Colonel Wild Dog dodged easily with a flash. Bartolomeo missed and passed by him. Colonel Wild Dog raised his leg and kicked Bartolomeo on the butt. Under the powerful force, Bartolomeo was kicked out again. Colonel Wild Dog's mouth corners raised, revealing a sneer. At the same time, he glanced around. To him, Bartolomeo was not much different from those minions, and he could also kill them in one move. Now it's like a cat playing with a mouse, just to shock everyone in Rogue Town. whether it's local hooligans or foreign pirates, let them understand that even if Rogue Town leaves Smoker, there is still Colonel Wild Dog. It's still not a place for them to mess around, but he didn't notice that the direction Bartolomeo flew to was exactly the direction of his men. Those men were just ordinary Navy men. One of them was knocked away without paying attention. Bartolomeo was hit, they immediately fell to the ground. At this time, the box in one of the men's hands fell down. A fruit that looked a bit like an apple rolled to Bartolomeo's side. Fuck. Mock's eyes lit up. Colonel Wild Dog also changed his face. I'm afraid he never thought that such a mistake would happen. That was the devil fruit he got by accident, and he was going to use it to build relationships. Bartolomeo was stunned for a moment, and then he took the devil fruit in his hand. Without thinking, he stuffed it into his mouth. You dare, shave. In an instant, Colonel Wild Dog disappeared from the spot. But no matter how fast he was, there was still a certain distance. Maybe in the original book, he was just a step slower. As a result, Bartolomeo ate the devil fruit, and Bartolomeo also turned the tide with this devil fruit, not to mention defeating Colonel Wild Dog. At least he could leave safely, but now, no one can be faster than Mock, and he was well prepared. So, he absorbed the sunlight early. At this time, he turned into a beam of light, and before Bartolomeo ate the devil fruit, he came to his side and snatched the devil fruit from Bartolomeo. Who are you? Colonel Wild Dog stopped abruptly, looking at Mock with fear in his eyes. Because, he recognized it at a glance, Mock's ability is natural, and it is similar to the ability of Admiral Kizaru's shining fruit. This made him have to pay attention and fear. Chapter 14. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It doesn't matter who I am, what matters is, this devil fruit is mine, thank you. At this point, he couldn't help shaking the devil fruit in his hand. Bartolomeo. It's already in my hand. I thought I was lucky at first. But, Colonel Wild Dog, that he was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. This was the key he would use to get through the upper part later. If he hadn't been afraid of Mock's ability, he would have taken action long ago, however, since the other party already knew that this was a devil fruit. It was naturally impossible to give it back to him, which meant that both sides had to fight. Shave. Colonel Wild Dog was also a very decisive person. After making a decision, he stopped talking nonsense. The whole person disappeared in front of everyone again, and when he appeared, he was already in front of Mock. Finger gun. I saw his index finger like a gun, stabbing at Mock's forehead. Dang, Mock did not choose to dodge, but relied on his ability to prepare for a counterattack. At the moment when Colonel Wild Dog's finger hit Mock's forehead, the third generation of Kitetsu in Mock's hand was unsheathed, and a cold light flashed in the air. But at the moment when he cut Colonel Wild Dog used the shaving again and entered a high-speed movement state, thus avoiding Mock's attack. When he appeared again, he was already 10 meters away. At this moment, his eyes changed again when he looked at Mock. With a little shock and a little doubt, he said, "You are really a natural ability user, but Admiral Kizaru is still alive and well. How did you get the shining fruit?" He had never heard of a natural devil fruit similar to the shining fruit. Originally, he thought that Mock only had a superhuman devil fruit similar to the shining fruit. At most, he had a similar way of moving and attacking as the shining fruit, but after that just now, he had already tested that the guy opposite was really a natural system, otherwise he would not have elementalization. Mock grinned. "This is none of your business. Have you ever been kicked by light?" As soon as the words fell, the light elements on Mock's feet gathered, making the entire right leg light up. Not good. Colonel Wild Dog's face changed drastically. Shave. At the same time, Mock's right leg had kicked out, and a beam of light burst out. Boom boom. Colonel Wild Dog, who dodged first, saw the beam of light pass through the place where he had just stood and hit a warship in the port. Its powerful power directly penetrated the entire hull of the warship, and with a roar, it broke into two pieces from the middle and sank rapidly. Hiss. Colonel Wild Dog couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. If he was hit, he would be disabled if not dead. When he thought of this, his scalp was numb. However, he was taught by Zifa after all. Even if his character was not good, he still had strength and courage. The pressure brought to him by Mock not only did not make him retreat. Instead, he became more eager to fight. He stared at Mach and said, "Since I was assigned to the East China Sea and became the deputy chief of the East China Sea, I haven't had a good fight for a long time." As soon as he finished speaking, Mach's body changed. He grew long gray hair all over his body, and his hands began to turn into claws. "Now I finally know why this guy is called Colonel Wild Dog, because this guy is an animal Wild Dog fruit ability user." Shave. The next moment, Colonel Wild Dog disappeared again. Fuck. The novel was taken from the Rawless website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. I have to say that this shave is very cool when I use it myself. However, when the opponent uses it, it is very troublesome. Mach can only be on guard. When he appeared again, he was already behind Mach, finger gun. Dang, this time, he did not choose to use elementalization. Because when Wild Dog used his ability, he felt a faint sense of uneasiness in his heart. So, he turned back and slashed the third-generation Kitetsu in his hand backwards. Accurately cut the finger of Colonel Wild Dog. What Mach didn't expect was that a very terrifying force came from Colonel Wild Dog's finger, which made Mach's hand tremble. It has to be said that the animal-type devil fruit is really suitable for physical masters. Not to mention anything else, the increase in strength alone is terrifying. However, what shocked Mach the most was not just that, because he turned his head at this time, he saw that Colonel Wild Dog's finger was actually wrapped with armed color. Damn, this is in the East China Sea. Armed color wrapped, is it so outrageous? Moke complained wildly in his heart, and at the same time he was very fortunate. The most important thing is to keep reminding yourself in your heart. Don't underestimate anyone in the future, and don't rely too much on elementalization. If you are not good, you will fall into the iron block. The ending of Illusion is tragic. Mach instantly turned into a beam of light, pulling the distance between the two. At this moment, he looked at Colonel Wild Dog with a different look. Wild Dog couldn't help but raise his mouth slightly, showing a bit of pride. This is his last trump card. Not long ago, he awakened the armed color, although it is only the most basic. It can only barely wrap around the fists, but it is enough. This is also a trump card that he is sure to be promoted to Major General of the headquarters. At this time, Mach also had the intention to fight. Shining. The next second, the light elements on Mach's body gathered, making Mach look like a little sun. The strong light made everyone unable to look directly, and dared not look, because, just one look, the eyes are like burning, and it hurts to open. One sword-style ghost flame flash. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the ghost energy of Mach and the Sandai Kitetsu all emerged and finally merged into one. Swish! Mach's figure flashed, and when he appeared again, he was already behind Colonel Wild Dog, slowly putting the Sandai Kitetsu into the scabbard. Puff! When the light on Mach's body dissipated, a wound on Colonel Wild Dog's body exploded, and blood gushed out. Colonel Wild Dog had an unbelievable look on his face. You know, in the East China Sea, he has absolute confidence in his own strength. Unexpectedly, asshole, Colonel Wild Dog couldn't help but curse, and it must be said that Mach's move was really amazing. He had a headache. He could not see anything with his eyes, and he had awakened the armament hockey, not the observation hockey. How could he avoid the opponent's attack when he could not see anything? Storm kick. Colonel Wild Dog turned around and threw out a storm kick. Dang. Mach's reaction was not slow either. The third-generation Kitetsu in his hand was unsheathed in an instant, and he swung it out, to block the move. However, the powerful impact made him retreat 4 or 5 meters. Shave. How could Colonel Wild Dog miss such a good opportunity? He shaved and appeared directly behind Mach, finger gun, that he pointed his index finger at the back of Mach's head and poked it. Chapter 15. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But the next second, he was frozen there. His finger was less than 10 centimeters away from Mach's head, but Colonel Wild Dog found that he couldn't move at all at this moment. He looked down and found that his whole body had been entangled and bound by the mud that surged up from the ground. At this moment, he was shocked and puzzled. Swish, and at this moment, the Sandai Kitetsu in Mach's hand drew a beautiful arc in the air. Cut towards Colonel Wild Dog's neck. Not good. Colonel Wild Dog's face changed drastically. because at this time, he had lost his ability to move and couldn't dodge at all. He could only watch as the Sandai Kitetsu got closer and closer to him, iron block. With no other choice, he could only choose passive defense. Swish, the Sandai Kitetsu slashed across Colonel Wild Dog's neck, and it was obvious that his iron block could not prevent Mok's attack. First, a wound slowly appeared, and then blood gushed out. No, impossible. Colonel Wild Dog had an unbelievable look on his face. The guy in front of him was obviously a natural fruit similar to the shining fruit. How could he control the soil again? But at this time, he found that the skin of the guy in front of him was no longer so shiny, but dull and even yellow. Unfortunately, everything was too late. At this time, Mok's mouth corners were raised and he smiled, just when he had just taken the kick of Colonel Wild Dog and was forced back 4 or 5 meters. He touched the ground with his hand, and the person also changed from shining to mud. Also, iron block is indeed the strongest illusion. This guy, under his full-strength knife burst of ghost energy, broke through the defense directly. He couldn't die anymore. Gotcha, that at the same time, in a dark corner. A person took a photo of Mok. And very professionally, he found a suitable angle. He captured the look of Mok when he put away the knife. It was quite a contempt for the world. At the same time, Mok was looking for Bartolomeo, but found that he had disappeared. Mok was stunned and murmured, "He is indeed an important character, and his life is tough. But now, there is no need to stay in Rogue Town." He pointed his hand at the sun in the sky and transformed into the flashing ability again. Finally, the whole person turned into a beam of light and rushed directly to the upside-down mountain. Then he quickly rushed to the Grand Line and quickly came to the first island. There are several routes to choose from on the Grand Line. And the first island on each route is an underground force that sells intelligence. Almost all the eternal pointers of the islands can be bought, but they are a bit expensive, so Mok landed on the island. I immediately found the tavern. Seeing Mok, a waiter immediately came up with a smile. "What do you need?" Mok didn't waste any words and said straight to the point, "I want an eternal pointer from the Cook Island." After saying that, he couldn't help but shrug his nose, because there was a fragrance coming to his nose, which made Mok have an appetite. So he added, "Give me another table of your most famous dishes." "Okay. You can find a place to sit, I'll be there soon." Tisk, Mok found an empty table and sat down. But a group of people, one by one, looked at Mok. Some of them were even malicious. Even bursts of sneers. "Another newcomer who doesn't know the world is here. I guess he's still dreaming of becoming the Pirate King. Aren't all newcomers like this?" Very childish, Mok raised his eyebrows and glanced at everyone present, with a bit of disdain in his eyes. "You know, the old people here are basically useless people who have lost their courage. They only pretend to be here in front of the newcomers." "Hey!" One of the burly men stood up and walked towards Mok. "Boy, the eternal pointer of a specific island is not cheap. I think you have some money, so pay for our table. How about leaving some money for me?" It sounded like a question, but the tone was unquestionable. Mok sat there and looked up at the person who came. Seeing that he looked like he had won himself, he couldn't help laughing. A waste who only dares to stay on the first island at the entrance of the Grand Line dares to laugh at those who have dreams. Although most of those guys are not good people. But they are much better than you waste. Quiet, the tavern instantly fell into silence. Whether it was the person who came or the person who originally planned to watch the show, their expressions froze on their faces at this time. Because Mok's words were like a slap in their faces. Instantly, everyone looked at Mok differently. They were no longer watching a show, but as if they wanted to eat Mok, especially the burly man. His eyes widened at this time. His eyes were full of anger. But just as he was about to lose his temper, he met Mok's eyes. At this time, Mok's pupils had turned purple, and at the same time, ghost energy gushed out of his body and swept around. The burly man was the first to bear the brunt. As soon as he said a word, he was hit hard. His face turned pale, and his body shook. All the other words were held back. Hiss. Everyone present felt a cold air blowing past, which made them shudder. The most important thing is that the momentum of the boy in front of them has changed. It brought them unprecedented pressure. everyone couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. After all, they were people who had come from all over the world. He still had some experience, so how could he not understand that he had met a tough guy today, but Mok said coldly, "Leave all your belongings behind and you can leave. Otherwise, you will use your lives today to bear the consequences of offending me." Everyone's faces froze, they wanted to bully the newcomers and get a share of the spoils. Who would have thought that they would be robbed instead? This time, everyone was dumbfounded, but these were pirates with blood on their hands. Greed is their nature. How could they easily give away their money? Bang! A pirate sitting by the window broke the window and jumped out, boom, but before he could be happy, everyone in the tavern saw that Mok's index finger was aimed at this guy, and a large amount of light elements gathered on his index finger, then a beam of light burst out and directly pierced the back of the guy who escaped. And the momentum did not decrease, and it hit a big tree 100 meters away. The terrifying force directly broke the tree, because the windows of the tavern were very large, most people could see it clearly. The tavern fell into silence again. Gurgle, that hiss, some people swallowed their saliva, and some took a breath of cold air. After coming back to their senses, the look in their eyes when they looked at Mok had completely changed. There was no more contempt and unwillingness, only awe. Then, they immediately put all the money respectfully on Mok's table. Then they retreated. Chapter 16. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thief ha ha ha. At this moment, a very distinctive voice sounded in a corner of the tavern. Fuck. When the laughter came, the expression on Mok's face did not change. However, his heart was in his throat, because in One Piece, many characters have very special laughter. Even by listening to the laughter, you can know who they are. For example, this laughter now, it is definitely Blackbeard, one of the future 4 emperors. Mok's pupils shrank suddenly. He never thought that he would meet such a big boss just after entering the Grand Line. With his current strength, he is not his opponent, who, Mok slowly exhaled to calm himself down. Then, he turned his head to look at the corner where the laughter sounded. Sure enough, I saw a big man who had his back to him, now turned his head and looked at him. There was a bit of appreciation in his eyes, and next to him sat a guy who looked terminally ill and dying, Poison Q. Mok recognized it at a glance. The original 4 admirals under Blackbeard were Lafitte, Gizas Bayas, Van Oka and Poison Q, but how did Blackbeard come to the entrance of the Grand Line now? No, it's the other way around. This is the entrance to the 4 seas. If I remember correctly, one of the 4 admirals under Blackbeard was born in the West Sea. He was originally a West Sea policeman, nicknamed Devil Sheriff and Devil Policeman. He is also the navigator of the Blackbeard Pirates and the future captain of the No. 5 ship of the Blackbeard Pirates. In addition, Poison Q is the only one around Blackbeard. Does that mean that now is the time for Blackbeard to go to the West Sea and successfully recruit Lafitte? But what is the purpose of this guy going to the West Sea? Could it be that he went there specifically to win over Lafitte? Is Lafitte really worth Blackbeard's special trip? At this time, the people in the tavern had almost run away. Blackbeard stood up from his position and walked towards Mok. At the same time, he looked at Mok carefully. You are absolutely right. These guys who can even abandon their dreams are not qualified to humiliate people with dreams in their hearts. Mok frowned silently. Ha ha ha. Seeing that Mok did not answer immediately, Blackbeard immediately added, how about joining my pirate group? He saw all of Mok's performance just now. Not only is his aura amazing and can shock others at a glance. He also has a powerful devil fruit ability. Then, his eyes fell on the Sandai Kitetsu in Mok's hand. He probably has good swordsmanship, so such a person is worth winning over. Mok was silent for a while, then laughed again, and said with a bit of middle school, that won't work. My dream is to become the man of the Pirate King. Ha ha ha. Blackbeard was stunned at first, and then laughed out loud. The look in his eyes when he looked at Mok became different, with a bit of scrutiny. Finally, he said meaningfully, I look forward to our next meeting. He walked out of the tavern, because he understood. The boy in front of him was not someone who would be inferior to others. Poison Q followed closely behind. After walking out of the tavern, Poison Q looked back and then said to Blackbeard, this boy is still young now, but he will become an opponent sooner or later. Why not? Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Blackbeard. There are so many people like this on the sea. Do I kill them one by one? Can I kill them all? Speaking of this, he also looked back and then said very domineeringly, what's more, if he really stands on the opposite side of me one day, I will take his head off with my own hands, thief ha ha ha. In other words, in the eyes of Blackbeard, Mok now can't even be called an opponent. In other words, in his opinion, whether Mok can reach the level of standing on the opposite side of him in the future is still an unknown. After Blackbeard left, Mok couldn't help but take a deep breath. To be honest, at this moment, he didn't want to confront Blackbeard head-on, because, there was no chance of winning. However, he had just prepared to take action. But, TSK. Mok's hand, which had been placed on the hilt of the third generation of Kitetsu, tightened involuntarily. The desire to become stronger has never been as strong as it is now. If you are not strong enough, you are not even qualified to be someone else's opponent, or, others are not even interested in taking action against you. Not long after Blackbeard left, the waiter just came over. This is the eternal pointer of the kitchen island, 300,000 Baileys. Mok's face twitched, not because he didn't have the 300,000 Baileys. But he sighed secretly. This black market is really too dark. The 2 knives that Zoda bought in Rog Town only cost 100,000 Baileys in total, but he still paid the money readily, because he was short of that little money. Then he asked again, do you have any information for sale here? The waiter nodded, of course. But are you looking for someone, or do you want to know something? Mok, cook Ada, born in Rog Town, East China Sea. She once appeared on Cook Island. I need all her information now. Waiter, please wait. Then he turned and left. Mok frowned slightly, because he could feel that this waiter. It was a little different from before. He didn't have a humble smile. Instead, he had a hint of arrogance. This made Mok a little confused. What made him change? He just showed his strength. Logically speaking, he should be more in awe of him. Interesting. Mok looked at the waiter leaving, with a meaningful expression on his face. Soon the waiter came back, holding a piece of paper in his hand, and smiled politely. The cook you are looking for, Ada, is a big shot. So, the price is a bit high. In the underground world, people's information is often priced according to their strength and status. Oh. Mok's face showed a little surprise. After all, it was because he got 2 famous swords from the weapon boss that he agreed to look for him. Unexpectedly, there was an unexpected surprise. As long as the information is true, the price is not a problem. The waiter stretched out a finger, 1 million Baileys. After that, he took out a den mushi. It's a bit expensive, but there is a reason for it. After receiving your 1 million, our people will keep an eye on her. Once her location changes, we will notify you immediately. Until you find her. Mok was stunned. This service is worth the price, so he nodded, and then took out a sapphire from his arms. After the waiter took it, he looked at it carefully. I made a judgment in my heart. Although this is a bit ordinary, it is still worth 1 million. So, I handed the paper in my hand to Mok, cook Ada, 30 years old. Friends who like this book, please give more comments and urge more updates. Thank you very much. Chapter 17. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cook Ada, 30 years old. She was once the captain of the Kitchen God Pirates, a 2-sword swordsman, and a great cook. She is also very powerful. A bounty of 130 million, she won the first place in the cooking competition on Cook Island that year, but she was plotted against that day, and all the crew members were killed or injured. Only she survived by chance, so, her temper became extremely irritable, and she would fight at the slightest disagreement. She is still on Cook Island now, because she firmly believes that the person who plotted against her is still on Cook Island. This is what is written on this piece of paper, and Mok's eyes are full of surprise. I never thought that this cook Ada had a bounty of over 100 million, this is enough for the price of a supernova, and this price was a few years ago, because she has been looking for the murderer on Cook Island in recent years. Therefore, her bounty has not changed. Interesting, Mok immediately said. the information about the person who plotted against her? If you have it, bring it here. I'll buy it together." The waiter was slightly stunned, and then narrowed his eyes. "Since this is your first time cooperating with us, and you have the potential to become a high-quality customer, I will make an exception to remind you once, anyone who buys this information. The information itself will also appear in the hands of that person. So, are you sure?" Mok was slightly stunned, and then narrowed his eyes. Because the information revealed by this guy is not ordinary. First, he is not the first person to buy information about the murderer from the underground world. Second, the murderer is not small. Ada is still on the Cook Island, which means that the person who bought the information has either been dealt with or retreated after learning the identity of the murderer. But he nodded. "Thank you, but bring the information here, I'm a little curious." Waiter: "Okay, but the price is a bit high. After all, everyone knows that this information is very likely to bring a pirate with a bounty of over 100 million into his team." As he said this, he showed a meaningful smile to Mok, as if to say, "Aren't you also thinking about this?" Mok couldn't help but laugh when he heard it. "Oh. Then I want to know how much she is worth in your underground world." Waiter: 10 million Baileys. Mok's eyes lit up. The higher the price, the stronger Ada's strength. So, after hearing this price, he was happy, so he took out a jewelry necklace. "This should be worth 10 million Baileys." Waiter: "Wait a minute." At this time, the smile on his face was a little more sincere. Selling information worth over 10 million, his bonus will naturally not be less. Soon the waiter came back with the information again. In the new world, under Doflamingo, Gladius, a member of the Don Quixote family, the superhuman Boom Boom Fruit ability user, with a bounty of 31 million. He actually has over 100 million strength. He used the power of the Boom Boom Fruit to ambush Ada and killed everyone in Ada's kitchen god pirates except the leader Ada. And successfully seized the devil fruit in Ada's hand. Damn. Mok couldn't help but show a shocked expression. He never thought that the person who shot would be Gladius, a member of the Don Quixote family. No wonder, behind him is Doflamingo and the entire Don Quixote family, but what kind of devil fruit actually attracted Gladius to shoot? Moreover, Gladius chose to ambush instead of confronting head-on. And the ambush did not succeed in killing Ada to eliminate future troubles. This shows Ada's strength. In other words, Gladius's strength is not as good as hers. But it is not worth Doflamingo's personal trip, so the current situation has been formed. Mok immediately felt that the money was worth it. He also felt that it would be a good choice to take this chef god Ada as the first partner. Mok suddenly thought of something and added, "By the way, give me another map to the Cook Island." The waiter chuckled, then took out a map from his arms and handed it over. "This map is my personal gift to you." Mok's eyes flashed. "Thank you very much." Then he added, "Next, should we get to the point?" The waiter was slightly stunned, then laughed. "You are really sharp. You can see this." "Huh." The waiter took a deep breath and straightened his clothes. "Then I will now formally invite you to join our Baroque studio on behalf of Baroque Studio. With your strength, once you enter Baroque Studio, you will immediately become a senior agent of Baroque Studio." Fuck. Just now it was Doflamingo's Don Quixote family, and now it is Crocodile's Baroque Studio. It's really amazing. That's right, in the Underground Intelligence Network. The new world is about Doflamingo, and the first half of the Grand Line is about Crocodile's Baroque Studio. However, he had no intention of being Crocodile's younger brother. Just as he was about to speak, the waiter added, "Don't rush to refuse. You can listen to the conditions we offer. First, intelligence sharing. All the intelligence you need will be provided to you for free. At the same time, if someone is unfavorable to you, or someone comes to buy intelligence about you, we will notify you as soon as possible, and even send people to help directly. Second, after joining, as long as you complete the tasks assigned by Baroque Studio, you can act freely at other times. Moreover, Baroque Studio will give very generous rewards for completing tasks. Third, you can choose the form of cooperation. Intelligence will be given to you first, and if someone is against you, you will be reminded. But to give Bailey. Of course, you also need to complete certain tasks. If you choose this form, you have the right to choose. Not every task must be completed. In a year, just choose 2 or 3 of the assigned tasks. I have to say that the third form of cooperation is very attractive, however, there is no need. Problems that can be solved with money are not problems. Intelligence, just buy it with Bailey. After all, no matter how nice it sounds, once you agree, it is equivalent to belonging to Crocodile's Baroque studio. So, Mok decisively refused. The waiter could only leave with regret, but Mok looked at the route map to the Cook Island, and soon the names of the 2 islands shocked him, Whiskey Peak and Aska Island. It must be said that this route overlaps with Luffy's. The former is the lair of bounty hunters, and Princess Wei and Luffy will go there. The latter is the island where the Holy Sword is, especially the latter. It is very attractive to Mok. You know, the Holy Sword is very strange and powerful. It can heal wounds automatically and increase the strength of oneself and companions. It can even control people's hearts and become one with the sword. It's awesome. If he absorbs it, his strength will definitely be improved. But this Whiskey Peak has to go there, not to meet Princess Wei, nor to meet Luffy and his gang again, but there is a famous sword, Huazhou, there. If I remember correctly, it seems to be in the hands of an agent of Baroque works. In the original book, it was finally obtained by Tashigi. Since you want to win over Ada, in addition to the information about the murderer, you must have a decent gift. And for a swordsman, is there a more suitable gift than a famous sword? Chapter 18. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a hearty meal in this tavern, Mok rested for another night. The next morning, Mok once again turned into a beam of light and headed towards the upside-down mountain, Navy headquarters. Marshal Sengoku stood up from his seat in shock, and exclaimed, "What?" Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru, who happened to be in his office, looked over at the same time, especially Garp, who even forgot to put the donut in his hand into his mouth, because he rarely saw Sengoku lose his composure like this. Vice Admiral Tsuru frowned slightly, because he had a bad premonition that something big had happened again. Then he asked, "What's wrong?" Sengoku hung up the den mushi in his hand, exhaled slowly, and then calmed himself down. Colonel Wild Dog, who replaced Smoker in the East China Sea, was killed. How could it be? Garp was surprised. You know, he often goes to the East China Sea. So, he knows it very well. There are only a few pirates with some strength in the entire East China Sea, but no matter which one of them, they don't have the courage, let alone the strength to kill the highest authority of the East China Sea Navy. Obviously, Crane also thought so. If there is a decent strong man among the East China Sea pirates, they will not be called the weakest in the 4 seas, so with some doubts, could it be that there is a strong man in the East China Sea? Zhang Guo nodded. Moke, unknown age, unknown birthplace. Has good swordsmanship, and is also a devil fruit ability user. He paused here. Then he added, according to intelligence, his swordsmanship was learned from Smoker's Deputy Corporal Tashigi. The devil fruit is extremely special. Not only can it have the ability of light and soil, but it also has the unique elementalization of the natural system. Ah! Vice Admiral Crane and Garp both showed a stunned expression. Garp said bluntly, "Zhang Guo, you heard it wrong. How can anyone naturally control light and soil at the same time? Don't even mention him." Even Zhang Guo himself doubted himself. If he hadn't just confirmed it again and again, he would never believe it. No. Even after repeated confirmation, it was still hard to believe in my heart, muttering to myself, natural system, nature is a natural element in nature. How could 2 natural abilities appear in the same person? Could it be that there is such a devil fruit? Or, this person has 2 devil fruit abilities at the same time? But no matter which one it is, it has exceeded their cognition all along. Vice Admiral Tsuru also came back to his senses at this time, turned to Sengoku and said, "Since this man's swordsmanship is learned from Smoker's Deputy Corporal Tashigi, why not ask them too? Maybe they will know what's going on." Sengoku heard this, his eyes lit up. At the same time, Smoker, who was chasing the Straw Hat Pirates with all his strength, was lost in thought while looking at the sea, but soon, a soldier immediately ran to Smoker with a den mushi in his hand. he said respectfully, Colonel Smoker is Marshal Sengoku of the headquarters. Smoker's pupils shrank when he heard this, and not only him, but also Toshiji on the side looked over. His face was full of worry. You know, Smoker is a first-come, first-served person, otherwise the Navy headquarters would never agree to Colonel Smoker's pursuit of the Straw Hat Pirates. Now I'm afraid it's troublesome, otherwise, it's impossible that Marshal Sengoku personally called, but now there is no way out. So I can only bite the bullet and take the Den Den Mushi. Marshal Sengoku, I'm Smoker. Sengoku, do you know Mach? Ah. Smoker and Toshiji were both stunned, because they were both ready to be scolded. At the same time, they were extremely confused and didn't understand why Marshal Sengoku asked about Mach. After they realized what was going on, although they were still confused, they immediately answered, we have some understanding. He is a friend of my deputy, Corporal Dashiki. Not only does he have a terrifying kendo talent, he also has a very special devil fruit ability. Warring states, tell me more about it. Smoker looked at Dashiki, and Dashiki immediately understood. 3 months ago, I met him in the weapons shop in Rogue Town. He bought 2 famous swords at once. He used one of the famous swords as a reward for me to teach him kendo, and I agreed. At that time, he knew nothing about swordsmanship. 3 months later, his swordsmanship was far better than mine, and he was only 1 step away from being a swordsman. His kendo talent is the only one I have ever seen in my life. Even those lieutenant generals who are good at swordsmanship in the headquarters are far inferior to his kendo talent. The devil fruit ability is very special. When we first met, he showed an ability similar to the superhuman cutting fruit in the weapons shop, which can turn people into blades. Later, when the Straw Hat Pirates were rounded up, he also helped. But at that time, he showed elementalization and the ability to control the soil. At this point, she glanced at Smoker, and then added, Colonel Smoker, and I speculated that perhaps he has multiple devil fruit abilities. What? Dashiki's words caused Sengoku to exclaim. Immediately, the phone turned into Vice Admiral Tsuru again. This guy actually has such a terrifying kendo talent. He also has an ability similar to the superhuman Jean fruit. Then add soil and light. Doesn't it mean that he is a 3-ability person with terrifying kendo talent? The key is that these 3 abilities are stronger than one. Especially the light element ability similar to the shining fruit, it is simply a copy of Kizaru. No matter who faces such a person, it will be a headache. Because, whether to fight or leave, it is all up to him. Trouble. Smoker couldn't help asking at this time, Marshal Sengoku, what did this kid do? He actually asked you to turn on the power yourself, Sengoku said bluntly, because this guy killed Colonel Wild Dog who replaced you. What? Smoker and Dashiki exclaimed at the same time, and at the same time they were very confused. Dashiki, no. I have been with him for 3 months, and I can feel it. He has no ill will towards the Navy. Zhangua, he stole a devil fruit that Colonel Wild Dog was supposed to hand in. When these words came out, Smoker and Dashiki's pupils shrank. Devil fruits, except for the celestial dragons, are the most important strategic resources in any force. Because a devil fruit can quickly cultivate a strong man, you can even directly win over a strong man, so, this sentence contains a lot of information. Dashiki clenched the snow in his hand, with an angry face. I will never allow the famous sword to fall into the hands of such a guy. One day, I will take back the Sandai Kitetsu from his hands. Back to the marshal's office of Sengoku, he had hung up the Den Den Mushi. But at this moment, his brows were furrowed even tighter. 3 months and only 1 step away from becoming a swordsman. What kind of kendo talent is this? And his ability. Sengoku suddenly felt a headache. Vice Admiral Tsuru on the side also had a solemn face. You know, her good sister Mamatoji doesn't have such a kendo talent. Including Garp, the 3 of them fell into a brief silence. Then, Vice Admiral Tsuru took the lead and said, Sengoku, I suggest a reward. Ask for free evaluation and urging for updates. Chapter 19. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Then, Vice Admiral Tsuru spoke first. Zhangguo, I suggest a bounty of 100 million berries. 100 million berries. Garp couldn't help but exclaimed, it's not that he had never seen the world. But this is the first bounty. Vice Admiral Tsuru nodded, yes, just offer a bounty of 100 million berries. After getting a clear answer, Garp was slightly stunned. Then he smiled again. This young man named Mok not only has a terrifying kendo talent, but also suspected to be a 3-fruit ability user. A bounty of 100 million is really not high at all. A natural ability similar to the flash fruit alone is worth 100 million, but Garp did not express his opinion immediately, but thought deeply for a long time. After making a decision in his heart, Zhangguo said, why not just offer a bounty of 300 million berries and praise him to the sky? Ah! Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru looked at Zhangguo together, especially Vice Admiral Tsuru. You know Zhangguo has always been a steady character. The 100 million berries she just mentioned were a suitable bounty that she offered based on Sengoku's personality and that Sengoku could accept, but she didn't expect that Sengoku would act out of character. Suddenly, a glimmer of wisdom flashed in Vice Admiral Tsuru's eyes, and he said with a bit of surprise, do you want to include him in the list of the 7 warlords of the sea? Hearing this, Garp couldn't help curling his lips. He disdained the 7 warlords of the sea. However, he didn't say anything to stop him. Sengoku, yes, given his relationship with Smoker and Tashiji, there is a high chance that he will agree. Of course, first of all, he has to survive this wave, otherwise no matter how talented he is, no matter how many devil fruit abilities he has, it will be useless. Vice Admiral Tsuru smiled, then add another fire, and show his 3 fruit abilities on his bounty order. And it must also be clearly stated that he is a 3-fruit ability user, and it is suspected that he has mastered the method of having multiple fruit abilities. When these words came out, Sengoku was stunned at first, then he was overjoyed. He even saw that all forces were swarming towards Mok. At the same time, in the New World, Doflamingo had received underground intelligence at this time, a natural ability user similar to the flash fruit. Just based on this, you dare to be an enemy of me, Doflamingo? Newcomers just don't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is. He couldn't help but look at Gladius on the side. The little cook is hidden by you. This time, get rid of her together. Gladius nodded, yes, young master. A few days later, in the upside-down mountain, a pirate ship with a straw hat painted on it sailed into the port. At this time, a seagull buying newspapers flew over their heads. Seeing this, Nami threw a coin directly. After the seagull bought newspapers, it threw a newspaper and landed directly in front of Nami. Nami picked it up and looked at it, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but stare. Then he exclaimed, Luffy, come and see if he is the one you and Zoro met in Rogue Town. Swish! Nami's words immediately attracted the attention of everyone on the ship. They all came over and looked at the newspaper. They saw a bounty order that showed the sword sheathed and the world in contempt. Then there was the huge bounty. A full 300 million. Luffy even shouted, yes, yes, it's this guy who helped the Navy catch me in Rogue Town. But isn't this guy a Navy? How come he is also bountied? Zoro nodded, yes, he is the one who dueled with me. I didn't expect that he would have such a high bounty. Kendo genius, 3-fruit ability user. Then his eyes fell on the line of words below the bounty order, and when he saw it clearly, he couldn't help but widen his eyes were full of shock, and he muttered in his heart, sure enough, he didn't use his full strength at that time. At the same time, a blue-haired girl also came over with some curiosity. At the same time, a beam of light fell on their deck and turned into a person. The person who came was naturally Mok. At this time, he glanced at everyone present, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Nami, Usopp, Princess Weiwei. It can be said that everyone is here. He didn't expect it to be such a coincidence. At the same time, they reached the upside-down mountain. After all, he was 3 months later than this group of people. Also, they can only sail by ship. Moreover, they don't have the eternal pointer. It can be said that they rely on luck all the way. Unlike him, there is a clear route and a clear eternal pointer. How can it not be fast? You guys, do you still want to fight? Luffy immediately put on a fighting posture. Obviously, Mach has left a deep mark in his heart. Scared, Nami and Usopp hid behind Zoro in fear. Sanji flashed in front of Princess Weiwei that he looked like a dog licker. Princess Weiwei, don't worry. I won't let him hurt you in the slightest. Moke, honestly speaking, the person he despises the most in the entire Straw Hat Pirates is Sanji. Although Nami and Usopp are timid, they really fight when something happens. But Sanji, as long as there is a beautiful woman, can make him kneel down and lick. Even if he knew that his companions were in danger, he didn't fight back. He kept procrastinating. If it weren't for the protagonist halo of the Straw Hat Pirates, by the time he was done, people like Nami and Usopp who had no strength would have died countless times. It's called, Gentlemen Don't Hit Women. In fact, he is a purebred dog licker, and he has no bottom line. Don't get excited. I won't fight you this time. Moke's words haven't been finished yet. A person fell from the sky and landed on the deck, staring at Moke. There was greed in his eyes. It was as if the Mach in front of him was not a person, but a rare treasure. Then he laughed strangely again. Tisk tsk. I didn't expect that I would wait for it. What a good luck. Who are you? Mach looked puzzled, because he had never seen this person before. This is Zoro taking the newspaper from Nami behind him and throwing it to Mach. It should be because of this. Mach took it and looked at it. Good guy. Really good guy. Not only did he directly offer a reward of 300 million, but he also said that he had the method of multi-fruit ability for the 3-fruit ability user. This cat, isn't it roasting him on the fire? Sengoku, you old Ingbi, the man laughed. After reading the newspaper, I think you should know why I came. Hand over the method of taking multi-fruit, otherwise. The words were not finished, but the meaning was already expressed very clearly. Hee. Vulture, this is not something you can take alone, so tell it out and share it together. At this time, a group of people came out, standing under the boat, staring at Mach. The two people in the lead were a man and a woman, and the man looked like a rock singer. Chapter 20. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The woman was tall and had short blonde hair. She wore a yellow hat and lemon slice earrings, a yellow dress with lemon slice patterns, and white high heels. She wore white gloves and held an umbrella with yellow and blue stripes. She was charming and always smiling. In terms of appearance, she was a sweet girl. But when she got into a fight, she was absolutely brutal, because Mach recognized them at a glance. This couple was Mr. 5 and Mississippi Valentine, senior agents in the Baroque Works. Behind them were Mr. 7, Mississippi Father's Day, Mr. 8, Mississippi Monday, and of course Mr. 11. Mach's eyes fell directly on the knife in Mr. 11's hand. If nothing unexpected happened, this knife would be Huaizhou. As for these people, he didn't care about any of them, not to mention them. Mr. 5 and Mississippi Valentine are the same. Too little trash. What a waste of the parahuman explosion fruit and the parahuman kilogram fruit, two pretty good devil fruits. Vulture also had a bit of disdain on his face. You have a bounty of 10 million Baileys and a bounty of 7.5 million Baileys. You dare to be arrogant in front of me? Who gave you the courage? Baroque Works. Swoosh, Mach has turned into a beam of light, and before everyone reacted, he has come to Mr. 11 and snatched the Huaizhou from his hand, and admired it. Scare. Mr. 11 was so scared that he took 7 or 8 steps back, and then he couldn't help but get angry. Give Huaizhou back to me. Mr. 7, Mississippi Father's Day and Mr. 8, Mississippi Monday looked at each other, and they all saw fear in each other's eyes. Then they took a few steps back in tacit understanding. Asshole. Mr. 5 Gem and Mississippi Valentine Machida were also furious, because in their opinion, Mach's behavior of ignoring them was a humiliation to them, especially Gem. If eyes could kill, Mach would have been killed countless times. Snot cannon. Gem reached into his nose and picked it, and then picked out a big snot. Then he used the power of the bomb fruit to bounce the snot out, and the target was Mach. Once it hits, it will explode violently, and the power is quite extraordinary. However, this is too disgusting for him. A very strong devil fruit has lowered him by several levels. He didn't even have the desire to swing the knife. Once again, he turned into a beam of light to avoid this disgusting attack. At the same time, the person had come in front of Gem. The index finger touched his forehead. The light element quickly gathered on the index finger. Not good. Gem's face changed drastically. He wanted to hide, but it was impossible to dodge in time. Huh. But at this moment, Mach felt a strong wind coming towards him. His face changed slightly. He exerted force on his legs and retreated 7 or 8 meters. At this time, a tall and muscular man with a monk's head and a monk-like outfit stood where he was originally, Mr. 1 Das Bonus. Mach couldn't help showing a surprised expression. He didn't expect that Crocodile would even send him out. You know, this is Crocodile's top general. Das Bonus also looked at Mach at this time, with a bit of scrutiny on his face. I thought you were just lucky enough to eat a powerful fruit. Now it seems that you still have some strength. You actually avoided my dust-slashing speed knife. As Das Bonus spoke, a woman with an afro walked out with a swaying step. He looked at Mach meaningfully and said, "The Navy's bounty is not groundless, ah. Hey hey. I say you Baroque works are really enough." At this time, the first vulture to arrive jumped down. Landed in the middle of the two groups, with an arrogant look, he looked like he didn't take anyone present seriously. Das Bonus didn't even look at him, his eyes were always on Mach. "Gem, Masita, this guy is in your hands." Mach looked at the guys in front of him, each of them seemed to have him ready. He immediately realized a problem, that is, he didn't have any record to show. So, even if his bounty was high, these guys wouldn't take he took it seriously, so, he wanted a battle that could shock most people. Otherwise, everyone would come to him. Now he really realized the power of flattery. Foaming daisy slash. After Das Bonus turned his palms and fingers into blades, he put his hands between his wrists and pounced on Mach. Mach's eyelids twitched. At this time, he reacted. Das Bonus has not yet awakened his armed color, so no matter how strong he is, he can't cause any harm to him. So, why did Crocodile send Das Bonus here? This is not any other minion. Suddenly, Mach had a guess in his mind. Could it be that Crocodile is here too? Otherwise it doesn't make sense. Because no one understands the invincibility of nature better than him as a natural system. So, Mach didn't even hide, and let Das Bonus attack and hit him, as he expected. Under the elementalization, Das Bonus could not cause any harm to him at all. Das Bonus' pupils shrank. You are indeed a natural ability user. Hey! Do you all think I don't exist? A pair of wings spread out behind the vulture. This guy turned out to be a rare flying animal fruit ability user. Obviously, he was going to take action. Because he would not allow his prey to be taken away by others, but at this moment, he saw a figure in the corner of his eyes, and the whole person was shocked. He immediately turned his head and looked, and when he saw the person clearly, there was a look of fear in his eyes. Then he shook his wings and soared into the sky. Surprisingly, without thinking, he chose to escape directly, but a figure quickly caught up with him, and an iron hook pierced into the vulture's abdomen fiercely. "Why are you running? Just now you looked like you didn't take Baroque work seriously." Puff, vulture spurted out a mouthful of blood, extremely desperate, and exclaimed, "So it turns out that the person behind Baroque works is you." The person who came was naturally Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Crocodile heard this and grinned, "You know too much. So go to hell."